It's time to build the interior of my Rand's S-20 Raven. Building an airplane has a lot of fits and starts. Going down one path and then having to do something else and then coming back to the original task. Such is the case with the interior. I had to go back and forth between making interior panels, installing mechanical systems, and then coming back to the interior. So this video covers about 3 months worth of work, but at least towards the end of the summer I was able to finally finish the interior. At this stage of the build, I have most of the components installed in the fuselage, except for the wiring. So this was a good time to finish fabricating the interior panels, decide on the colors, and cover them with the upholstery. First up was installing the rear window frames. I painted the inside with gloss pewter gray enamel, matching the gray color of the powder coat. Then the outside was coated with zinc chromate primer as a base for the fabric and exterior color. The collapsible paint booth I fabricated came in handy. Maybe in a future video I'll cover the design and build of this paint booth. Since the thickness of the powder coating prevents inserting a rivet in the window frame tabs, the holes needed to be drilled out, which removes the powder coat while unfortunately exposing the bare steel to any corrosion. To protect the steel from oxidation, I used Corband 27L, a corrosion-inhibiting compound specifically developed for aviation applications. It's rather a beeswax-like consistency which is used to coat static joint connections, keeping moisture and chemicals from attacking the bare metal. The core band is forced into the hole with the excess wiped off. Then the window frames are riveted in place. I'll use this technique to coat any exposed bare metal of the chrome moly frame, especially the wing, gear, and engine mount sleeves. Completing the baggage area was next, which first involved laying the panels within the frame for fit and trimming. Then they were drilled and cleat-coated in place. The directions from Rand's were pretty good, with the panels going together rather easily, but wheeling those big panels around the bench was a chore. My only deviation from the plans was to use flush rivets all around to avoid bumps under the fabric. Thinking ahead, I added mounts to the baggage sidewalls for LED lights. Once all the angle braces were riveted to the panels, I added heat-reflective batting to both the bottom and sides of the panels. This was both to provide thermal insulation and noise reduction. There's nothing worse than the noise created by larger aluminum panels oil canning from vibration. I was worried about the rudder and elevator controls becoming jammed if, or when, the insulation may peel loose and drop down onto the cables, since it was only held in place by contact cement. So I riveted in these aluminum biscuits, mechanically securing the batting to the floor. Supplied with the Rand's kit, the seat side closeouts were these vacuum-formed plastic panels, which frankly were a little awkward to figure out and seemed to require a lot of trimming to fit. Besides, they encroached a fair amount into the seat bay, so I ditched them in favor of just fabricating plain aluminum panels, which seemed much easier to make and also provide more room. As I did when installing all the side panels in both the baggage area and the crew compartment, I covered the aluminum panels with outdoor fabric, the kind used for lawn chairs and umbrellas. It's pretty durable, waterproof, and fire resistant, and comes in any color under the sun. I applied spray-on contact cement to both sides, let it dry for a minute or so, then used a seam roller to work out any bubbles or crease lines. Then after cutting and gluing the fabric around the panel edges, I used a hot soldering iron to melt holes in the fabric for the mounting screws. I was finally able to use my new battery-powered iron, which worked out great. And with the extra room now on the sides, I may add these pouches, size just big enough for sectional charts. Yeah, I know, who uses paper charts anymore? Then a quick coat of Scotchgard, and on to the next set of closeout panels, the kick panels. Here's a habit I've been using whenever I have a lot of interior panels with various sizes of mounting hardware. On the back of the panels, I always mark the screw size, which is very helpful when reassembling a panel, oftentimes months after removing it. I also package all the assembly hardware into kits. Each time I come across a part or assembly that will need to be mounted later in the build, such as after the wings are mounted or final paint applied, I collect all the required hardware and bag it, being careful to label it thoroughly, even sometimes with a drawing reference number. I include all the parts necessary to install that assembly, even the rivets or common hardware. I have a whole drawer of these kits already, which makes final assembly much less stressful, since I won't need to hunt down that one little nut or bolt. Now, to add a touch of class, I decided to install wood floors in the baggage area and cockpit footwell. Maybe it's from my many years racing sailboats, or just that I enjoy making things out of wood. In any case, I think it will add a nice touch to the interior. I found a local lumber supplier who had a nice selection of marine plywood, which is of much higher quality with a natural ability to repel water. The first step was to make cardboard templates, which involved lots of repeated testing, cutting on the bench with straight edges, then test fitting again. One thing I also needed to accommodate was the ability to remove these wood panels without too much effort after the entire plane is together. Then cutting the wood was a little nerve-wracking, because you know how plywood is, it loves to splinter along the cut. With lots of sanding involved, the fit was coming together, and the wood panels were finally able to just drop in snugly, but still with a little expansion space around the edges. Then, after drilling the mounting holes for the flush brass screws, I finished the wood with a few coats of marine varnish, which makes it look great and protects it from the elements. Although, it makes for a somewhat slippery surface when wearing shoes, so if need be, I may add another varnish coat impregnated with non-skid compound to make it easier climbing in or out. So here it is. Overall, I think it looked great, adding a touch of class to the interior while keeping it utilitarian, durable, and easy to clean. Oh, and of course color coordinated with the exterior colors I have in mind. And as for the exterior colors, I haven't decided on the final layout or colors yet, but I know I'll start with overall white, which has its advantages of protecting the fabric from sunlight and also making the airplane more visible in the air. There's a reason golf balls and the vast majority of airplanes are painted white. So over the white base, there will be plenty of blues, teals, and turquoise accents, with maybe an orange stripe in there somewhere. We'll see where that leads me, but those colors are well represented in the interior. I try to keep the weight down as much as possible for the wood floors. I use 1/4-inch marine plywood as its high quality lends itself to higher strength while using less material. So overall, the wood floors only added 7 pounds. Not so bad, considering I'm not really adding anything else heavy to the basic kit, like a smoke system or a parachute. I think the interior came out pretty nice. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. So now that the interior is done, it's time to move on to designing and fabricating the electrical system and the avionics. The fun part, at least for me.